bring in NewsNation Chief Washington anchor Leland Vittert, host of Unbalanced. Leland, Markie and I have been sitting here talking about this because we know that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says that the U.S. does not see conflict and wants the Iranian-backed attacks to stop. But will these two airstrikes be enough of a deterrent to stop Iran?
Well, the easiest way to prevent conflict is the credible threat of violence, and that was something that had been lost in the Middle East, both by the Israelis and by the United States. So the question is, does Iran believe that this is enough of a punch in the nose, to use the old school sandbox analogy for the bully, to stop and back off and move on? To be seen, but by way of saying that this is exactly what was needed, which is to show the Iranians that there's going to be a real cost extracted for their bad behavior. Now, is this the same kind of cost that, for example, was the killing of Qasem Soleimani by President Trump? No. At the same time, the level of attacks from the Iranians had not reached that level yet. So now we wait and see, and whether the Iranians back down or whether another lesson needs to be taught.
Yeah, we obviously know this was the first U.S. offensive military response to a wave of these drone and rocket attacks that we've seen, authorized by President Biden and Lloyd Austin. I thought it was interesting, the Pentagon saying, quote, "The actions we took tonight in defense of our forces are separate from our support to Israel and its operations against Hamas." Leland, how should we interpret that clarification? How do you interpret it?
Kind of meaningless, but in the sense that the Pentagon wants to try and make very clear that the United States is not getting involved militarily in Israel's operations, either against Hamas or against Hezbollah in the north. It's important for a lot of reasons. Number one is the Israelis like to do things on their own. And number two, once you get involved in a conflict, it's very hard to get out of being involved in a conflict. So I'm not really sure why they felt the need to say it, but they did. It seems pretty self-evident that hitting weapons depots inside Syria, especially eastern Syria, aren't really connected. But again, it all leads back to Tehran, right? And the more deterred, the more of a price Iran has to pay for these actions, the less likely they are to take additional actions.
Leland, let's stay in that area there with that. We know Russia has been working to expand its influence in the Mideast. What do you make of this Hamas delegation and Iran's deputy foreign minister actually visiting the Kremlin?
Birds of a feather flock together. There's nobody happier right now about a war in the Middle East than Vladimir Putin is, because it distracts the world from his war in Ukraine and gives him some time to regroup and rearm and not have such a focus on it. The Iranians certainly want to replace the United States as the major power or become an equally major power in the Middle East. Nothing makes the Russians happier than to hurt American prestige. So this is a very close alliance you have, and we saw a number of the tactics that Hamas used were copies of things that the Russians has used in Ukraine and perfected, like the use of drones and dropping ordnance vertically. So this all goes together. Again, it comes back to what price from the Russians and from the Iranians is the Biden administration willing to extract in order to make this behavior stop? Because the credible threat of violence is really the only thing that is understood as a language in the Middle East.
Well, we did hear Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin say that the United States can walk and chew gum at the same time, and it looks like there are definitely enough things happening in every theater to keep us occupied. Leland Vittert, thank you so much, sir.
See you soon.
And you can watch Leland on Balance with Leland Vittert tonight, starting at 7 Eastern, right here on NewsNation.
And also, thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.